Start with Doug Luzader live in Washington with where the Russia-Ukraine peace talks stand now. Doug.
Good morning, and these developments are happening pretty quickly here. First, we have news from the Wall Street Journal that Zelenskyy may be open to what they're calling proportional land swaps with Russia, and we could soon see face-to-face meetings involving Zelenskyy, Trump, and Putin. That follows this extraordinary meeting at the White House yesterday, and you see all of them gathered there. Trump, Zelenskyy, 7 other European leaders. The deal that seems to be emerging here would require Ukraine to cede some territory to Russia in exchange for security guarantees from the U.S. and European allies, something similar to Article 5 NATO protections, even though Ukraine would remain outside of the NATO alliance. The president wrote on Truth Social, "At the conclusion of the meetings, I called President Putin and began the arrangements for a meeting at a location to be determined between President Putin and President Zelenskyy. After that meeting takes place, we will have a trilat, which would be the 2 presidents plus myself."
We'll see, and in a certain period of time, not very far from now, a week or 2 weeks, we're going to know whether or not we're going to solve this, or is this horrible fighting going to continue. We'll do our best to get it ended. And I believe you have 2 willing parties, and usually that's good news.
Now, for his part, Zelenskyy emerged from this meeting ready and willing to engage with Putin.
We supported the idea of the United States, of personally of President Trump, to stop this war, to make a diplomatic way of finishing this war, and we are ready for trilateral, as President said.
And the big question now is whether Russia would be willing to accept these NATO-like protections for Ukraine to bring this war to an end.
Yeah, Doug, that is the question after the Russian foreign minister yesterday said that they would not. But President Trump said that he got a different message from Vladimir Putin. So clearly more needs to be hashed out as progress is being made. Doug Luzader live for us in Washington. Doug, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's bring in Heritage Foundation Vice President of National Security, Victoria Coates. Victoria, good morning to you. Great to see you. I mean, what a remarkable day yesterday, with a room full of global leaders all united in trying to end this war. So where do you think things stand today after these major discussions yesterday?
Well, good morning, Carly. Yes, I mean, this has been an incredible 72 hours ever since the Alaska summit. And what we're finally seeing here is an American president take a leadership role and say, you know, I cannot tolerate this kind of violence and killing in Ukraine, this kind of disruption in Europe, bringing together all of those European leaders. And so as you look at a room like that, what you see is a reinvigorated NATO under Secretary General Mark Rutte and under President Trump, a NATO that is actually going to invest 5% of its GDP in defense. That's something President Trump got in April, in the Hague summit. And that is what is going to be a deterrent for Europe. And so it's from that position of strength that President Trump is saying to President Putin, let's wrap this thing up. Let's get this done. And President Zelenskyy of Ukraine is right on board with all of this. And I think we're going to see more developments in coming days to finally bring this war to an end.
Yeah, and on the deterrent front, as well as the leadership front, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that everybody in the room yesterday agreed that Secretary of State Marco Rubio would lead a task force to draft up what some of these security guarantees would look like. And yesterday, during President Trump's remarks, he said that the European nations are going to take a lot of the burden, and then the United States will come in and make sure that things are really secure. So, I mean, fill in the blanks for us on what you think that means. It sounds like the president might be talking about something short of American boots on the ground.
Oh, I think so. I mean, the president is always careful to reserve all of his options. So, you know, he's not saying he will or will not commit to, you know, American troops. I think that's highly unlikely at the current juncture. So what he is willing to do is say the United States will sell $100 billion worth of arms to Ukraine over a period of time. There will be more arms that will be sold to the EU. So they will purchase those for deployment in Europe. That's so different from what we've seen over the last 3.5 years, where we just had emergency supplemental after emergency supplemental jammed through the United States Congress. And the thing about these emergency supplementals is that's just more debt on the U.S. taxpayer, on us and our kids. And we just can't sustain that any longer. So he's setting up a new paradigm where Europe pays for Europe's wars. Yes, the United States assists. Yes, he's providing just invaluable leadership to try to get out of this crisis. But that we as the United States have other things we have to attend to. So we need to get this wrapped up. So I think this is just a whole new framework for the situation.
Yeah, and really quickly, I just mentioned it. What's the deal with the Russian Foreign Ministry now saying that they reject the NATO-like security guarantees? How big of a deal is that?
Well, Minister Lavrov is not really a decision maker in the Russian hierarchy. He's running around in a CCCP T-shirt in Alaska. I really don't think it matters what he says. What matters is what President Putin says. And apparently, President Putin said to President Trump yesterday that he's ready to talk.
Okay, and looking ahead, President Trump said yesterday that there's going to be a one-on-one meeting between Vladimir Putin and Vladimir Zelenskyy. They're working on that right now before there's a trilateral between Putin, Zelenskyy, and Trump. I mean, Victoria, what's that going to be like? These two leaders, Zelenskyy and Putin, in a room together, two people who would undeniably kill each other if they could, but in this setting would be engaging in diplomatic talks without President Trump there.
Yeah, Carly, in a word, that meeting is going to be fraught. There's a lot going on there. I think it's encouraging that they're even considering it. That wasn't even on the table 2 weeks ago. If they can get into a room, they can have a conversation, figure out what might be possible, and then President Trump can come in and mediate. So we'll leave it up to them how they're going to rack and stack those meetings. But the fact that it's even being considered is demonstrable material progress.
Yeah, and it could be President Trump trying to distance himself from exactly the contours of how this war actually ends while he pushes for it to do just that. And yesterday, during these discussions between Zelenskyy, the European leaders, and Trump, 7 people were killed, including 2 children. So clearly, as these negotiations continue, this war is still very real in Ukraine. Victoria Coates, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.